Records are about aspirations, about success, about being the first, the fastest, the highest, the furthest, the youngest, the best. Who has the most? Who is the greatest? Records are the very essence of sporting achievement. A benchmark of success, linking the past to the present and beyond.
A true dream team. It is. It's fun.
At the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, the United States basketball team stunned all opposition and the world at large.
There is no question in my mind that they are the greatest team that ever went onto a playing surface to compete.
No team had ever stepped onto the court with such a wealth of talent at their disposal. 11 of the 12 players would enter the revered Hall of Fame. The Dream Team scored a record average of 117 points per game, overwhelming all opponents. Not just the greatest ever basketball team, but perhaps the greatest team in the history of sport.
U.S. teams were culled from the top college stars. It was very much of a different. There were the Olympics over here, and they were the college kids, and then there was the NBA up here, and there was really absolutely no connection. And so when it came to '88, I think people did look at it and they expected us to win, but the way we lost, I mean, when people looked at it, they were clearly not the best team.
Prior to that, having always selected amateurs, the US had won 9 of the 11 Olympic tournaments in which they competed. Their failure in 1988, winning just the bronze medal, prompted a rethink.
Boris Stankovic was a executive for FIBA, the International Basketball Organization. He was, in one word, a visionary. He just saw this thing as why do we have the Olympics over here with the best players in the world not even close to it?
The US and principally the NBA initially voted against the proposal, reluctant to let professionals compete at the Games. But their objections were overruled, and some of basketball's greatest ever players were sent to Barcelona. Michael Jordan was the world's most famous sportsman. By 1992, he'd led the Chicago Bulls to 2 NBA championships and had been voted the league's most valuable player on 3 occasions. Larry Bird was approaching the end of a stellar career with the Boston Celtics, 3 times MVP and a 3-time NBA champion. Magic Johnson of the LA Lakers, a 5-time NBA champion and 3-time MVP, came out of retirement to join the team. 3 of the sport's greatest ever players playing in the same team.
Well, everybody I'm pretty sure is independent, but yet collectively focused. Magic and I think Bird is going to be the captains, and they're the elder spokesmen on this team. So, you know, they're going to be our spokespersons for this team.
That team included future Hall of Famers David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Scottie Pippen, Clyde Drexler, Karl Malone, Chris Mullin, Charles Barkley and John Stockton. College player Christian Laettner was the 12th man of the greatest team ever assembled by coach Chuck Daly, himself a 2-time NBA champion. The prospect of representing their country thrilled the millionaire superstars.
We're the chosen few to go back and rescue the gold medal, so it's a privilege, I think.
No, all I want to do now is compete for my country, and it's a one-shot deal for me. I'm going to try to do my best.
You know, you're like a little kid right now.
The Dream Team were welcomed in Spain as heroes, but many questioned their mere presence at the Games, an event built on the bedrock of amateurism and the Olympic spirit.
This is not the Olympics. This is kind of taking it to this Hollywood marquee, crazy MTV kind of level that maybe this is what happens to us in 1992. But I personally don't like them being here because I think they overshadow the true athletes, the track and field, the swimming, those people.
I think if you got the best players in the world, you send the best players in the world. And I read this garbage in the paper about people saying, oh, that's not fair. You're sending these big guys over to beat up on these little kids. Get out of here. This is sports, man.
Everything that we thought was going to happen, excitement of the game, interest in the game, how well they were going to play, all that was kind of magnified.
Amidst the hype and excitement, it was perhaps easy to forget there was basketball to be played. And the US began the tournament winning easily against Angola 116-48, a margin of victory which epitomised the Dream Team's ethos.
They played this game the the right way. It always seemed like they did their jobs very professionally and solid, but it always did seem like a game.
The US dominated the group stage, averaging 116 points in their 5 games. In the quarter-final, they defeated Puerto Rico 115-77, setting up a semi-final against Lithuania, considered by many as the biggest threat to the US. But the Europeans were routed 127-76.
I remember seeing them before the last game. They were really, really, really psyched up because they knew that they had done this 5 times already. This is the 6th time. It's getting kind of old hat. This was kind of a foregone conclusion. I think because of the fact that, let's say your 2 best players have a bad game. This, it didn't matter. Let's say Michael's not playing well, and let's say Chris Mullin's not hitting his jump shot. It didn't matter. There's 4 other guys that could have come in.
The final against Croatia saw the US trailing midway through the first half. But their undoubted class came to the fore. Winning 117-85, the Dream Team took gold.
I don't think I've ever interviewed anybody, Olympics from any country, when that doesn't mean something. The cynical thing about these guys was that, well, they have all the money in the world. They have promotional, they have marketing overseas. They don't really need this. But I think I got it most from Bird. Bird came from a broken family. His father was not around. His father had a lot of problems. And I remember Bird was saying how him and his dad used to look at the Olympics together and on television. And that's kind of how the American kid grows up, you know, doing that. I'm sure it's the same in other countries. And so to actually get there and be a part of it was something very, very special for those guys.
The US team of 1956 averaged 115 points per match, but the 1992 Dream Team averaged 117. No one has come close to matching that record since. It was only for a brief time, but the Dream Team will never be forgotten.
The spectacle of them being together was unlike anything that I've ever seen. What sticks in your memory is the memory of how they played the game. The no-look passes, all-stars setting back screens for other all-stars, hard-boiled defense, playing the game the right way. Beyond the numbers, that's what kind of sticks with these guys.
When I think of those moments, I get goosebumps.
In 2008, Spain won the European Championship. 2 years later, in South Africa, they won the World Cup.
I think it will be very difficult to repeat that era. To be honest, we never saw it coming. Never.
In 2012, Spain retained the European Championship, and in doing so became the only team to win 3 successive major international tournaments.
We had 3 amazing moments, and I hope people will remember them.
Few football teams have won successive international competitions. Germany, France, and Brazil won the World Cup and their own continental championship within 2 years of each other. What makes Spain's achievement all the more amazing is that prior to 2008, they'd only won 1 tournament, the 1964 European Championship. Coach Luis Aragonés began the process that would change that.
Luis Aragonés is perhaps the most influential person in the history of the Spanish national team. I think he was the pioneer, the one who saw that, with us, it was more about talent than physical strength. He just realized that we could compete by passing the ball, by moving it around quickly, by understanding the game. He saw that it was the midfielders who had to be the most important players on the pitch, the ones who had to get on the ball most, switch play and see where the space was. Little by little, we learnt all those things with him. He believed in that system, in that philosophy, and I think he really had the right qualities and the leadership to make it all happen.
The hard work on the training pitch was rewarded as Spain reached the final of Euro 2008 in Vienna, where they faced Germany. A solitary Fernando Torres strike won the match, and Spain have won their second title, 44 years after their first.
It was a great moment for us, and for Spain in general as a country. It was incredible. It was like starting from scratch, and great to know that we contributed to the joy of an entire country.
After leading Spain to glory, Luis Aragonés returned to club football with Fenerbahce. He was replaced by Vicente Del Bosque.
I inherited a great squad from the last manager, a squad that won the European Championship. There are no two managers the same, but we've carried on with our style and carried on our path. The style in which we play on the pitch is the product of the players. We wouldn't go against their characteristics.
He's a wonderful people person, a real gent. He's a real football man too. And he knew that we had to keep going along that path because we'd had success. We didn't start well at the World Cup, losing to Switzerland, and that made us more nervous than usual.
That 1-0 defeat to the Swiss substantially increased the pressure on the 2010 World Cup favourites.
We had countless opportunities and plenty of possession, but that day the ball didn't want to go in and we lost the game. But we then knew that we had to win all the following 6 games to be world champions.
The team stuck to its guns, even if we didn't play well until maybe the Portugal game. We played well against them in the last 16, and that's when we started seeing Spain perform. We really had to fight against Paraguay in the quarter-final, but then we played a great game in the semis. We really did well.
Spain faced the Netherlands in the 2010 World Cup final in Johannesburg, aiming to join a select group of international teams by winning consecutive major tournaments.
It was live to the whole world and everyone was watching. It was a difficult game, a hard match, as is always the case with games against Holland. I think they saw Spain as favourites for that final. For us, it was hard. It was a very difficult game to score in.
It was the Netherlands' Arjen Robben who went close to scoring in the 60th minute.
I was fortunate. I tried to follow Robben as much as possible. And when he shot, I was lucky enough to put my leg out to the right and deflected the ball away from the goal. I think that moment made us grow stronger. We were also lucky from the start. And this is important, to have luck in a World Cup.
The match went to extra time, and with only 4 minutes remaining, Cesc Fabregas found Andrés Iniesta in space.
He made history by scoring that goal against the Netherlands, and he'll always be remembered fondly.
It was a moment of joy, of great happiness for all of us, and for the whole of Spain. And I think it is a time that will be marked for eternity. Even if we do win other World Cups, as I'm convinced we will, there won't be another moment like that one.
To some extent, we built on the success we'd had in the European Championships. We had a winning mentality. We believed we could beat anyone, and we felt important out on the pitch. I think we had a great World Cup, even if we didn't start too well.
With successive tournament wins, Spain had matched the achievements of France and Germany. But such was their dominance, a third was in their sights: Euro 2012 in Poland and Ukraine.
For me, this was the most difficult of all the championships we've played. Because from 2006 to 2010, we spent 4 years playing football in the same way. This was 2 years later, 6 years on. So all the players and all the countries knew how Spain would play. Winning in Poland and Ukraine was a big challenge, but not necessarily against the other teams, more against ourselves.
On the 1st of July 2012, Spain faced Italy in the final in Kiev. They showed no signs of pressure thrashing the Italians 4-0. The first...
Obviously, there were some players who had decisive roles at certain times, but I don't think this is why we won. It was more because we were a team, and there was good camaraderie in the team. The 23 players were a tight-knit group.
What can I say? Of course I feel proud. As a footballer, you have this privilege of making millions of people happy. Millions. So when you have the opportunity of making so many people happy in your own country, well, that's amazing. You really feel like you've fulfilled your duty.
New Zealand are quite simply the greatest rugby team in the world. They're the only side to have won the Rugby World Cup on 3 separate occasions. Across a period of 28 years, 2 separate and distinct generations of All Black rugby legends have brought the sport's ultimate prize back to what the New Zealand nation believes is its spiritual home.
Once you become an All Black, you've actually got to be a good All Black, because if you're not a good All Black, then it's worse than not being an All Black at all.
Every time you get a chance to run out there in the jersey, you've got to nail it, because if you don't, someone else is ready to take your spot.
It's a bit like Brazilian football, the All Blacks in rugby. There's mythical tradition.
Having been the dominant force in rugby for most of the 20th century, it was only in 1987 that the All Blacks could finally prove their worth on the global stage when they and their neighbours Australia hosted the first ever Rugby World Cup.
It was a tournament that nobody really knew whether it was going to be successful or not successful. Well, even on the first game in May '87 at Eden Park, there was only 20,000 people that turned up, you know, for the match, you know, for a World Cup match, New Zealand against Italy. It was my first test match, and we're sort of looking around and thinking, well, we'll just get on with it. Fortunately, if you like, John Kirwan scored one of the great individual tries of all time, still to this day, and it just lit the imagination of everyone around the world.
The 1987 All Blacks were simply a class above all of their nearest rivals. Despite their amateur status, they displayed a level of professionalism that no other side in world rugby could match.
The quality of the team was the strength and depth that we had. We had some world-class players. One that comes to mind would be Buck Shelford at number 8. I mean, Buck was a leader, but not the captain at the time. We started doing the haka for the first time in New Zealand soil because Buck had initiated it, you know, through his cultural ancestral roots. He went to the right people and said, look, we can do the haka. The squad was tight and everyone was pushing each other the whole time. But there was no jealousies, you know, so everyone just sort of bought in, you know, to the cause.
The All Blacks eased through the group and knockout stages. No opposing side got within 27 points as they reached the first Rugby World Cup final against France.
It was drizzly, so probably not very good rugby conditions. And so as a result, we couldn't play our expansive game. Plus as well, we knew that if we kept it too loose, the French would love that. So we had to keep it very tight because they had a big, strong forward pack and classy backs. You know, so we knew we had to show them the utmost respect. And yeah, finally, yeah, won the game by 29 points to 9.
An emphatic team performance which saw New Zealand crowned as the first winners of the Rugby World Cup. Remarkably, despite being rugby's dominant side for the next 24 years, New Zealand failed to win any of the next 5 tournaments. The 2007 quarter-final defeat against France was particularly painful for coach Graham Henry and his players. Redemption would have to come on home soil in 2011.
The people that survived that, they turned the negativity into a positive. And then they realised that they could not leave any stone unturned, you know, and they had to really analyse everything.
We knew we needed to win, you know, for rugby in our country and for the people. You know, I'd been one of those supporters who'd been disappointed in the past throughout those World Cups.
The 2011 All Blacks were a formidable side. Captain Richie McCaw anchored the world's best pack of forwards, while the game's best fly half Dan Carter led a backline full of pace and power. However, by the time the New Zealand side reached the final against France, they were reeling from injuries. Carter had limped out of the tournament, and the All Blacks were down to their third-choice fly-half, Aaron Cruden. When he got injured in the first half of the final, he was replaced by Stephen Donald, who just a week earlier had been enjoying a fishing holiday with his friends.
Graham Henry can't get through to him. They're trying to ring him because his phone switched off. So it took him days to get through to him. And so he gets called, so he puts on this tight-fitting All Black shirt and he can't get it over his belly because he's put on some weight.
It's funny how things work out. White baiting a couple of weeks before or even the week before, and there he is kicking a decider in the Rugby World Cup final. When he got the chance, I knew that he'd take it with both hands, and I knew he'd nail it. And as soon as he turned around, I knew he did. But just really happy for him, and it was such a special moment.
The fact that he just sort of rocked up, a few days before the final, and then kicks the winning goal, fantastic.
Donald's successful kick proved pivotal in New Zealand's now-biting 8-7 victory. A dramatic ending to 24 years of hurt.
When I think back to that tournament, relief is the word that comes to mind. Being here at home, having all that expectation, but also having memories of failed World Cups, having that on our shoulders. But getting over that hurdle was it was like broke the shackles really for us, and it was quite special to be able to achieve that in front of our own people.
The All Blacks then set their sights on defending their title. They entered the 2015 tournament in England, having lost just 3 games in 4 years.
Going back-to-back was something that we had never achieved before, and we call ourselves the best, but you're not the best until you achieve this.
With his 2011 injury nightmare behind him, first-choice fly-half Dan Carter was back, directing the All Black attack as they progressed to a semi-final clash against South Africa.
The Springboks, they have a huge focus on their physicality and their set piece, and you give them confidence at the beginning of the game, you're in for a long night.
But then Dan Carter just stepped up again, with a drop goal, out of nothing. And they won 20 points to 18. It looked quite comfortable for me. They looked in control. They weren't looking like they were panicking.
Victory over South Africa set up the final the whole world had been waiting for. New Zealand versus Australia.
Australia, All Blacks test, you want to be involved in them, and you don't want to be on the losing side. So that week, we just wanted to make sure that we didn't leave any stone unturned, and World Cup final, you want to make sure you do everything possible to get your team on the front foot.
First time Aussie and New Zealand ever met in the final, and I think for skill, for pace, I thought it was the best final I've ever seen. When Marnonu scored the try in the start of the second half, I thought it's all over. But then the Aussies just came back.
I started to get a bit nervous because the Wallabies get their tails up, they're tough.
But that's when the hurt of 2007, the experience of 2011, and, the culture comes through. Dan Carter stepped up. His display in the final was as close as you get to perfection.
New Zealand claimed their record third World Cup with a 34-17 victory. And captain Richie McCaw ended a 14-year international career that many considered to be the greatest of all time.
To mentally, emotionally and physically prepare yourself for one test match for the All Blacks, is a lot. To do it for 140 plus times, but not only play, but lead the side, and then lead the side to the most amount of wins that most players have never even played before. It's just, there's no comparison.
For McCaw's men, victory had justified their emotional and physical journey.
To achieve it as a team, it was beyond words. It was really special, and achieving it away from home, I think that made it much more sweet.
To take 28 years to win it 3 times. I think the New Zealand public and the next generation of players coming through will know that it's not something you can take for granted.
It was just so special coming back home with the trophy and sharing it with our loved ones, with the country, and just seeing how everyone else appreciated it and how they took it. It was, yeah, all the hard work and sacrifice was worth it.